As a newcomer to Quake, one of the most overwhelming things from the get-go is the weapon selection. Conditioning your mind and muscle memory to swap freely between 8 different items in the blink of an eye requires much repetition to truly understand. Today, let's ease that burden and outline when each weapon is most important, why you should value it, and how to use them most effectively. Let's get started. Today's discussion will be strictly the fundamentals. If you're interested in mastering each weapon or learning all their stats, all that kind of stuff, I hope to cover them in way more detail than you could ever hope for in subsequent guides. But today, let's begin with the 3 basic starting weapons, the machine gun, shotgun, and nailgun, then we'll move into everything else on a basic, fundamental level. At each spawn, you've got the opportunity to select one of those first 3 weapons that we mentioned, the machine gun, shotgun, or nailgun. In general, as a new player, I strongly recommend that you avoid the nailgun. While potentially extremely damaging, its projectiles are very slow and awkward until you spend a good bit of time practicing them specifically, so that leaves us with the machine gun and the shotgun. In a vacuum, the machine gun is usually going to be the best bet for any player, beginner or veteran. It's got solid, reliable damage, perfect for defending yourself off of a fresh spawn or finishing off weak enemy targets. I mention these 2 situations specifically because they're without a doubt the main usages of this starting weapon. Your goal with the machine gun should never be chasing people down or going full aggression unless you know with certainty that they're critically damaged and that you can score the kill quickly. If you can't say for sure that your opponent is on death's door though, your goal with this weapon is simply to discourage their aggression towards you while staying alive and searching for a better gun. The heavy machine gun, which is the version of this weapon that you pick up on the map, offers slightly more damage per shot, as well as a scoped-in firing mode with slim to no spread and a further increased 15 damage per shot at range at the cost of some rate of fire. While it's no railgun replacement, it can be quite punishing in chaotic game modes like Deathmatch. For the new player, this isn't really a priority pickup, but if you're getting zoned out of core weapons like the lightning gun, rockets, or railgun, this is definitely going to be one of the next best things to prioritize to get you back into the game. Next, we've got the starting shotgun, which is a bit more narrow in application than the machine gun, but as you might expect, it's definitely a lot better in that narrow scope than the machine gun could ever hope to be. If you're playing Sacrifice with a fast champion like Anarchy, choosing this gun over the machine gun in a lot of cases is a very correct decision. In any variant of Deathmatch or Duel though, I recommend it a bit less unless you're in a few very specific scenarios. For example, if you're getting killed a lot off of spawn at close range, or you're dueling against a clutch and you want to have the best possible chance of dealing with an early shield rush, the starting shotgun would be a better pick overall. Really though, the big problem with the starting shotgun isn't that the gun is inherently weak or bad in any way, it's more that you have to give up on that starting machine gun, which just gives you so much versatility. You can finish people off at long range, you can still do good damage at close range, it's always going to be that reliable weapon, whereas the shotgun, if you're off by even just a little bit, you're going to be dropping quite a lot of damage off of every single trigger pull, and with the fire rate being as slow as it is on a shotgun, that's pretty damning in a lot of situations. In terms of prioritization, I feel like this gun is on the exact same tier as the heavy machine gun, where basically if you already have other weapons like the LG, the rocket launcher, the railgun, and you're already pretty decently stacked on health and you're just looking for something else to do, something else to grab, then yeah, go for this gun. If you're in a situation where you're getting rolled by 4 scale bearers or 4 lizards on the enemy team, then go ahead, prioritize a shotgun. It's probably going to be just fine in those situations, but overall, it's not your first pickup. Finally, we have the starting nailgun. Both versions of the nailgun fire very slow projectiles at an extremely high rate of fire and have potential for best-in-class DPS. If you put in the work to learn how to lead your shots with this weapon, you can tear through targets at close range faster than either the machine gun or the shotgun could ever possibly let you. At medium range or longer though, your goal with the either nailgun really isn't going to be getting kills directly or dealing massive damage. Your goal is more to play defensively. Your goal is more about spamming, getting incidental damage, and area denial. Other uses include trying to cover escapes. If you're in a situation where you just gotta get away, you can look back at where the enemy's gonna chase you through and just start saturating that area with nails. It's a great way to get out of there and to discourage that chase, discourage enemy movement. But with how much easier it's gotten to hit people with this nail gun recently, thanks to some updates that happened, it's honestly not the worst thing in the world to use this gun offensively in deathmatch if you're playing a fast class and you're really confident in your movement and your ability to stay at that point-blank range with your target. As you can see in these clips here with Anarchy, I'm able to absolutely rip through people with this gun who are not playing around it effectively. And quite frankly, how could they with how fast this class is and how high the damage per second of this weapon can actually be. Now, this is a very off-brand, off-the-label kind of use of the nail gun. It's not the way that I recommend that you use it from the get-go. But once you're confident with other weapons, once you're looking to explore a little bit more and do something a little bit different, the Super Nail Gun is a really cool way to see just how absolutely damaging you can be in those close range fights with these awkward kinds of guns. Like, practicing this gun will actually help you with the next one we're going to talk about, which is the TriBolt. Now, in the current state of Quake Champions, the TriBolt isn't a terribly useful weapon, to be completely honest. It's this weird combination of the nail gun and rocket launcher all in one kinda stupid gun, honestly, with none of the good parts of either. This isn't a gun you should ever be going out of your way for, but you're inevitably gonna pick it up during normal play sometimes, and it's important that you at least understand how to use it and what its purposes are. Basically, you can use this thing as a spamming weapon to discourage enemy movement from entering an area, or just being annoying with splash damage while conserving your rockets. Alternatively, if you've got no better option, this can be a surprisingly damaging weapon against medium and large body-sized champions if they decide to rush you down and fight at point-blank range. Think, for example, a Sorlag, who is rocket jumping and coming at you at 700 or 800 DPS with a lightning gun or a rocket launcher, and they're trying to just light you up, and you're fresh off spawn, you've only got your starting machine gun and a TriBolt you happen to pick up. Well, the TriBolt can theoretically win you that fight, or at least allow you to do very heavy damage to that very, very angry lizard that's chasing you down. But that is a very fringe scenario, not something that you should worry about too much as a new player, but just be aware that it's something that you could do if you absolutely needed to. Going back to the proper on-brand, on-label usage of this weapon, though, what you should be doing is, if you've already got a stack of other weapons, and you just want to conserve your rockets, but you want to spam an area at the same time, TriBolt will fulfill that purpose for you. It'll allow you to spam while conserving rockets because it's not your rocket launcher. But apart from that, if you have a TriBolt and you're lacking a railgun, you're lacking a rocket launcher, you're lacking a lightning gun, then forget about even trying to use this weapon in any serious capacity and go get yourself a better gun. Now, it is worth noting for posterity that sometime after this video comes out, it is going to be making a change to the TriBolt where the bolts that when they hit the ground are going to become proximity mines as opposed to being on a timer. So if you're a time traveler and you're wondering like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Well, the bolts didn't always have that functionality. They used to just detonate on a timer, and the gun is just not used in the state that it's in right now. But once that patch happens, who knows, things might change, and I'll be sure to update you guys when it does. Finally, let's finish up with the Gauntlet before moving on to Quake's 3 most powerful weapons. The Gauntlet is your melee weapon, which of course has unlimited ammunition. When using this weapon, you really don't want to fall in the trap of walking in a straight line towards your opponent, because obviously in a game like Quake, that is suicide. And there's absolutely situations where you can set it up to get actual value and actual damage consistently and reliably without having to just pray that your opponent is really dumb and lets you walk in a straight line at them. For example, if you run around a corner and an enemy is chasing you too hard, you can turn on them and humiliate them by just gauntleting them right in the face as they turn that corner with relative ease. The same idea applies to camping teleporter exits, as well as the top of jump pads. Other than that, the Gauntlet is a staple in Sacrifice for really fast characters like Anarchy and Slash. It's usable in really chaotic game modes like Team Deathmatch, where maybe opponents just don't see you and they're busy dueling 1 versus 1 with one of your teammates. You can just jump behind them and just gauntlet them in the back really quick and finish them off. Like, those are the kinds of situations where you'll use this thing in the current metagame. It's not a staple anywhere outside of really high-level competitive Sacrifice. That's really about it. It's usable in Duel as well, but that's kind of the main places where I would really rely on it if I wasn't trying to be just a total meme and using Gauntlet only with like Slash or something, which is kind of a thing, but I mean, we're not talking about those fringe scenarios. We're trying to talk about just regular plain Jane gameplay. This is something you might pull out for 1 tick of damage every other game, is kind of the rate at which you should honestly be using the Gauntlet. Finally, we're getting to the good stuff. The rocket launcher is your bread and butter weapon most of the time when playing not just Quake Champions, but any Quake game ever. And as a new player, you should probably have your priorities set with the rocket launcher in the number 1 position. This is absolutely the best gun for you to use and learn and just try to perform well with as a brand new player to Quake. Even if you're a long-time Quake player and you played other Quakes, but Quake Champions itself is new to you, go for the rocket launcher. This is just the place to start in Quake. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you for this next part. If you've ever played a first-person shooter ever before, I'm sure that you have picked up and used a rocket launcher within one of them at some point, and you're familiar with the ideas of shooting the ground near your opponent, trying to shoot their feet with it, needing to lead your shots. I'm not going to assault your intelligence by breaking that stuff down. What I will tell you, though, is that there's a couple of mistakes that I see a lot of people making with the rocket launcher in this game, mostly just due to panicking because Quake is just a new and strange experience that I really think that you can avoid with just a little bit of practice. So pitfall number 1, if your enemy team has got the high ground, or at least just the enemy person that you're fighting, not necessarily the whole team, if they got the high ground and you have a rocket launcher and they're shooting down at you from above, you generally are going to want to switch weapons away from that rocket launcher. As you know, rocket launchers tend to perform really well when you can shoot their feet as opposed to trying to hit their bodies directly, and if they're above you, then hitting their feet is simply not an option. You're going to have to go for that direct hit, which is really hard to accomplish. So why would you try to rely on that when you have other guns that are much more reliable that you can switch to? Maybe perhaps try a railgun, or a lightning gun, or a shotgun, or a machine gun, or a nail gun, or literally anything else than the rocket launcher or the TriBolt in that scenario, and you're probably going to be better off. Now, there's exceptions. Like, for example, if an enemy is standing on top of the bridge on Blood Covenant, and you're standing on the big heavy armor, and they're on the bridge, and they're looking down at you, if they are standing really close to the ledge of that bridge, then you can shoot the ledge, and you'll do really, really nice damage to them. If your opponent is making that mistake of standing near a ledge on any area that's higher than you are, then sure, shoot the ledge. You're going to do a lot of damage, but as soon as they realize what's going on and they move, you got to switch off that rocket launcher. And remember, running away is always an option as well. There's no shame in realizing, oh crap, this guy has the position on me, he's got the guns on me, I am just gonna die if I continue fighting, and you just turn around and you run away from that fight. There is nothing wrong with that. That is how you survive and win in Quake, especially in modes like Duel. You have to understand when you're not in a power position, when you're playing from behind as opposed to playing from ahead, and just playing that strategy up. So nothing wrong with doing that. Always consider it as an option. Pitfall number 2, it's not worth your time trying to learn how to get those perfect mid-air rocket hits on airborne targets when you're a brand new player. Sure, it's cool and feels really nice to get them, but if you can consistently pop your opponent into the air with your rockets, focus on using that advantage to either land a second rocket on the ground for max damage as soon as they land, or swap to something like the railgun or the lightning gun to get some guaranteed easy damage while they are airborne. Moving on to the lightning gun. This is your bread and butter hit scan weapon for close to medium range fights. The DPS of this weapon is unmatched by any other hit scan weapon in the game, so perfecting your aim with it is paramount to your success. The most important things to know about this weapon are that it pushes your target with each successful hit, meaning that you can potentially pin opponents in corners, prevent them from rushing you, or force them to float mid-air and die for free. In my lightning gun specific guide, I'll teach you the best ways to improve and drill your aim so you can be as effective as possible with the gun, but for now, just watch the clips and see how much damage you can really do with this monster of a gun, especially if you pair it with quad damage. One downside to note though is that this gun makes ambient noise while you hold it. While this isn't a concern in deathmatch, team deathmatch, or sacrifice, it's a huge detriment in Duel and most likely will be in 2 versus 2 as well. The reason for this is quite simple. Sound is one of the most important sources of information in Duel, and holding a lightning gun gives your opponent ample information about your positioning, it reveals that you even have an LG to begin with, and it gives away your intentions if you're not careful. This isn't to say that you shouldn't use the gun in duel, that's far from the truth, but all I'm saying is that you don't want to be holding it in your hands 24/7. Try to only pull it out right before you need it to mitigate the amount of knowledge given up to your opponent. Finally, we have the Railgun. Big damage, perfect accuracy, and long cycling time between shots characterize this weapon. Much like the rocket launcher or the LG, there's not a lot to say here. Point and shoot while avoiding the weapon's pitfalls. This gun makes a lot of noise while holding it, even more than the lightning gun, so avoid standing around with it in duel until you're ready to commit to a shot or you know that your opponent isn't within earshot of you. Be aware that once you shoot, you're unable to switch weapons while waiting for it to cycle the next shot into the chamber, so be very careful with it if you're in close range or if you're in a wide open space or something like that, because if you miss your shot, there is a lot of time for your opponent to punish you before you can do anything about it, and is oftentimes going to get you killed. So be careful about when you apply this weapon just because of that one specific downfall. Also of note with this weapon is that if you aim down sights and you let it charge up all the way, your shot is going to deal 10 extra damage, which is really nice. It's not a huge deal, but in duel, that adds up over time. The Railgun is definitely a higher priority pickup than most people will give it credit for in modes like Deathmatch or Team Deathmatch, so my recommendation would absolutely be to go out of your way for this gun whenever you can. You will be rewarded for it once you get your aim down. In application, you don't necessarily need to be sniping with this gun, but if you use it in situations where you've got a corner nearby to duck behind after shooting, or whenever your opponent is moving in such a way that hitting them is easier than normal, such as when they're airborne or trying to grab an item, then go for it. That's exactly when you want to use this weapon. With enough raw gameplay time, using any of these weapons in the optimal situations is going to become second nature to you. Now, I understand how overwhelming it can feel at first, having to manage 8 different weapons and learn their individual hotkeys, but just give it time, and try to focus on one at a time, and you'll work your way to competency in no time at all. Anyways, everyone, thank you all for watching, and I hope that this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below, and I'll do my best to help you out. In the future, we'll be getting much more technical with these weapons, so hopefully this basic primer has gotten you ready to at least get your feet wet. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.